In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
While Abraham was engaged in the sacrifice, Satan went to Sarah and appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And he said to her, "Dost thou not know all that Abraham has done unto thine only son this day?" And he took Isaac and built an altar and slaughtered him and brought him up as a sacrifice. And Isaac cried and he wept and before his father. But he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion upon him. After saying these words to Sarah, Satan went away from her, and she thought him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son. And Sarah lifted up her voice and cried bitterly, saying, "Oh, my son Isaac, my son, know that I had this day died instead of thee. It grieves me for thee. After that, I have reared thee, and I have brought thee up, and my joy is turned into mourning over thee, and my longing for a child. I cried, and I prayed, and I bore thee at 90. Now hast thou served this day for the knife and the fire. But I console myself, it being the word of God, thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God? In whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Lord, our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also rejoice the word which thou didst command. And while mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaidens, and she became as still as a stone. She rose up afterwards and went about making inquiries concerning her son till she came to Hebron. And no one could tell her what had happened to her son, and her servants went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber. They could not find him, and they sought throughout the land. And he was not there, and behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was exceedingly violent, that her soul went out through joy. This is from The Legends of the Jews by Ginsberg.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Attention, please draw your attention to the explicit content indicator that is found everywhere this podcast is available. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless public radio hushed monotone. I'm excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. My mind often races. I frequently talk very fast while thinking on the fly or I will sometimes slow down for effect while reading. And I also occasionally go off my notes on brief tangents. I drink while I record, and you will certainly hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about body functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. These topics may seem random or scattered throughout the back catalog. However, a full list of show topics in chronological order is available on the featured topic link on Advertise.com. If any of these negative qualities might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you. And I wish you good luck in finding a show more to your liking. With that being said, if you give a poor rate and review for any of the items listed above, you are a jerk for wasting this minute of everybody else's time. My name is John Towers, and this is the Abercast. We are continuing with our deep dive. It's coming to an end. I think we're like almost to the end here. But we got some real good. We do have some real good stories coming up. This one might sound dry, like you're like the death and burial of Sarah. I mean, what can we do? But listen, there's some good stuff here. The featured books for this evening are The Legends of the Jews, as always, by Ginsberg, and as always, the Bible. You could check it in your Bible. I guess you can check it in The Legends of the Jews, too. And yeah, we're just going to get started. We're just going to roll right in. I don't think there's much that I have to add. The Fellow Craft episode on Patreon and Subscribestar this month is we're talking about historic sightings of sea serpents. It's an interesting show. It doesn't have much to do with this, so I wanted to make sure I blurted it out here if you're interested. All right, so here we go. We're back to The Legends of the Jews by Ginsberg. And if you remember from the cold open, Sarah just passed away through joy. She was so joyous, her soul left her body. When Abraham with Isaac returned to Beersheba, they sought for Sarah. They could not find her, and when they made inquiries concerning her, they were told that she had gone as far as Hebron to seek them. Abraham and Isaac went to Hebron. And when they found that she was dead, they cried bitterly over her, and Isaac said, "O mother, my mother, how hast thou left me? And whither hast thou gone? O whither hast thou gone, and how hast thou left me?" And Abraham and all his servants wept and mourned over her great and heavy mourning, even that Abraham did not pray, but spent his time in mourning and weeping over Sarah. And indeed, he had great reason to mourn his loss, for even in her old age, Sarah had retained the beauty of her youth and her innocence of her childhood. So at this moment, I would like to invite everyone to summon their vessel of the art, to mix up their weapon of mass distraction. I have, as usual, a gin jihad in my glass, and raise it to the sky and say thank you to my Patreon and Subscribestar supporters. Thank you very much. Without you guys, this podcast would not be available. Whatever. It wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a podcast. You would be amazed at how much it costs to run a free fucking podcast. That's what I'm saying. So thank you, Patreon and Subscribestar folks. The death of Sarah was a loss not only for Abraham and his family, but for the whole country. So as long as she was alive, all went well in the land. And after her death, confusion ensued. The weeping and lamenting and wailing over her going hence was universal, and Abraham, instead of receiving consolations, had to offer consolation to others. He spoke to the mourning people and said, "My children, take not the going hence of Sarah too much to heart. There is one event unto all, to the pious and impious alike. I pray you now, give me a burying place with you, not as a gift, but for money." So there's a lot of theories about what this is all about. I think we're going to get into them a little bit. In these last few words, Abraham's unassuming modesty was expressed. God had promised him the whole land, yet when he came to bury his dead, he had to pay for the grave, and it did not enter his heart to cast aspirations upon the ways of God. In all humility, he spake to the people of Hebron, saying, "I am a stranger and a sojourner with you." Therefore spake God to him and said, "Thou didst bear thyself modestly. As thou livest, I will appoint thee Lord and Prince over them." To the people themselves he appeared an angel. And they answered his word, saying, "Thou art Prince of God among us." In this choice of all of our sepulchres, bury the dead among the rich if thou wilt, or among the poor if thou wilt. But Abraham, first of all, gave thanks to God for the friendly feeling shown to him by the children of Heth. They were the people that started this whole fucking land of Hebron business. And then he continued his negotiations for the cave of Machpelah. I'm just going to do it one more time because I'm going to have to redo this name a bunch of times. The cave of Machpelah. And had long known the particular value of this spot. Adam had chosen it as a burial place for himself, and he had feared his body may be used for idolatrous purposes after his death. And he therefore designated the cave of Machpelah as the place of his burial, and in his depths of his corpse was laid, so that none might find it. When he interred Eve there, he wanted to dig deeper because he scented the sweet, sweet fragrance of paradise near the entrance to which it lay. But a heavenly voice called to him, "Enough! Adam himself was buried there by Seth." And until the time of Abraham, the place was guarded by angels who kept a fire burning near it perpetually, so that none dared approach it and bury his dead therein. Now, it happened on the day when Abraham received the angels in his house. We did that like 2 episodes ago, I think. He wanted to slaughter an ox for their entertainment, that the ox ran away in the pursuit of Abraham, entered the cave of Machpelah. I'm still having problems with it. When he saw Adam and Eve stretched out upon the couches, candles burning at the heads of their resting places, and the sweet scent pervaded the cave. Therefore, Abraham wished to acquire the cave of Machpelah. And the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the city of Jebus. And they said to him, "We know that in time to come God will give these lands unto thy seed. And now do thou swear a covenant with us that Israel shall not wrest the city of Jebus from its inhabitants without their consent." And Abraham agreed to this condition. And he acquired the field from Ephron in whose possession it lay. Genesis 23, the death of Sarah. Sarah lived to be 127 years old. She died at Kirith Araba, which is another name for Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep over her. Then Abraham rose from bedside his dead wife and spoke to the Hittites, and he said, I'm a foreigner and a stranger among you. Sell me some property for a burial site here so I can bury my dead. The Hittites replied to Abraham, Sir, listen to us. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will refuse you his tomb for burying your dead. And Abraham rose and bowed before the people of the land, the Hittites. And he said to them, if you are willing to let me bury my dead, then listen to me and intercede with Ephron, son of Zohar, on my behalf. So he will sell me the cave of Machpelah. I'm still having problems with it. Which belongs to him and is at the end of his field, and ask him to sell it to me for the price as a burial site among you. And Ephron the Hittite was sitting among his people, and he replied to Abraham in the hearing of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of his city. No, my lord, he said, listen to me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. To you, the presence of my people, bury your dead. Again, Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron in their hearing, listen to me if you will. I will pay the price of the field, accept it from me so I can bury my dead. So this is a thing we see with Abraham. This is one of the tangents I was just talking about earlier. This is the thing we see with Abraham in the World War Zero, what I call World War Zero. If you look in the feature topic link, it's called World War Zero and Adam's Magic Wonder Pants or something like that. You find he races into this War of Nine Kings, or the Vale of Sidam, and he wins this war. And he was like a late entry. He was like if it was a wrestling match, he was like a run in. Like he ran in and defeated all the bad guys. And the bad guys had taken his nephew or son or brother. It depends on what you read, but they had taken a relative of his named Lot, which we all know from the Sodom and Gomorrah story. But when he returned, like he brings the spoils back, and Melchizedek, who is this priest king of Jerusalem, comes out, and he was like, just take whatever you want. We'll feed your troops, you know, whatever. And Lot goes, no, I need to pay you for this. So I can't get blamed for being a cheapskate later. That's literally the story. And if you go to that feature topic link on abercast.com, if you go to that World War Zero or anything that says Melchizedek, you'll find it. You'll find that story in there. Okay, back to the Bible. Again, Abraham bowed down before the people of land and said to Ephron in their hearing, listen to me, I will pay you the price of the field, accept it from me so I can bury my dead there. Ephron answered to Abraham, listen to me, my lord, the land is worth 400 shekels of silver, but what is that between you and me? Bury your dead. And Abraham agreed to Ephron's terms and weighed out for him the price that he had named among the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weight current among the merchants. Ephron's field at Machpelah. I'm still having a hard time with it. I am deep in my cups. I'm recording later than usual, and I haven't eaten anything all day. So I apologize. But you've been warned. Both on the field and the cave in it, and all the trees within the borders of the field was deeded to Abraham as his property in the presence of all Hittites who have come from the gate of the city. Afterwards, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which is another word for Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave, as it were, deeded to Abraham by the Hittites as a burial site. So, just another thing to jump in is we just got done with the Testament of Solomon episodes like a month or two ago. And in the place, in the swine, the skull, I can't remember what the name of it was, but we did an episode about a skull. Part of the episode was about the skull of Adam, and we mentioned it mentions this. It taps right into this. So I'll let you figure it out. You know, if you want to go back, if you want to get another story about it or a complete picture, back to the legends of the Jews. When Abraham entered the cave to place the body of Sarah within, Adam and Eve refused to remain there because they said, we are ashamed in the presence of God on account of the sin we committed. And now we shall be even more ashamed of the account of your good deeds. And Abraham soothed Adam, and he promised to pray to God for him, that the need for shame be removed from him. Adam resumed his place, and Abraham entombed Sarah. And at the time, he carried Eve, resting, back to her place. And 1 year after the death of Sarah, Abimelech, the king of the Palestinians, died too, at the age of 193 years. His successor upon the throne was a 12-year-old son named Ben-Melech, who took the name of his father after his ascension. And Abraham did not fail to pay a visit of condolence to the court of Abimelech. Lot also died about this time at the age of 142. His sons Moab and Ammon both carried Canaanitish wives. Moab begat a son, and Ammon had 6 sons, and the descendants of both were numerously exceedingly. Abraham suffered a severe loss at the same time in the death of his brother Nahor, whose days ended in Haran, and he had reached the age of 172 years. So we go on to, this story continues with the mission of Eliezer. Where are we at with time? I got to check it out. Okay. The death of Sarah dealt Abraham a blow from which he did not recover. As long as she was alive, he felt himself young and vigorous. But after she passed away, old age suddenly overtook him. It was he himself who made the plea that age be betrayed by suitable signs and tokens. Before the time of Abraham, an old man was not distinguishable eternally from a young man. And as Isaac was the image of his father, it happened frequently that father and son were mistaken for each other. And a request meant for the one who preferred to the other. Abraham prayed, therefore, that old age might have marks to distinguish it from the youth. And God granted his petition. And since the time of Abraham, the appearance of men changed in old age. This was one of the 7 great wonders that occurred in the course of history. The blessing of God did not forsake Abraham in the old age either. It might be said that it had been granted to him only for the sake of Sarah. God prospered him after her death too. And Hagar bore him a daughter, and Ishmael repented of his evil ways and subordinated himself to Isaac. And as Abraham enjoyed undistributed happiness in his family, so also outside in the world, the king of the east and the west eagerly besieged the door of his house in order to derive benefit from his wisdom. From his neck a precious stone was suspended, which possessed the power of healing the sick who looked upon it. The death of Abraham, God attached it to the wheel of the sun, the greatest blessing enjoyed by him, and by none except him and his son Isaac, and Jacob, the son of Isaac. And that the evil inclination had no power over him. So that is his life. He had a foretaste of the future world. And all these divine blessings showered upon Abraham were not undeserved. He was clean of hand and pure of heart, one that did not lift up his soul into vanity. And he fulfilled all the commands that were revealed later, even the rabbinical injunctions, as, for instance, the one relating to the limits of the Sabbath day journey, wherefore his reward was that God disclosed to him the new teachings which he expounded daily in the heavenly academy. But one thing lacked to the complete the happiness of Abraham, the marriage of Isaac. And he therefore called his old servant Eliezer unto himself. And Eliezer resembled his master, not only externally in his appearance, but also spiritually. Like Abraham, he possessed full power over evil inclination. And like the master, the servant was adept in the law. Abraham spake the following words to Eliezer: I am stricken in age, and I know not the day of my death. Therefore prepare thyself, and go unto my country, and into my kindred, and fetch hither a wife for my son. Thus he spake by reason of the resolution he had taken immediately after the sacrifice of Isaac on Moriah. And he had there said within himself that if the sacrifice had been executed, Isaac would have gone hence childless. And even ready to choose a wife for his son, and among the daughters of his 3 friends, Aner, Eshol, and Mamre, because he knew them to be pious. He did not attach much importance to the aristocratic stock. Then spake God to him and said, concern thyself not with a wife for Isaac. One has already been provided for him. And it was made known to Abraham that Milcah, I don't know how to say it, the wife of his brother Nahor, childless until the birth of Isaac, and that had been remembered by God and made fruitful. And she bore Bethuel. And he in turn, the time of Isaac's sacrifice, begot the daughter destined to be the wife of Isaac. Who is it? Do you know her name? Do you remember it? Mindful of the proverb, even if the wheat of thine own place be darnel, use it for seed. Abraham determined to take a wife for Isaac from his own family. He argued that it was any wife he chose would be have to become a prolycite. It would be best for them to use his own stock, boy, which had the first claim upon him. Eliezer now said to his master, "Pre-adventurer, no woman will be willing to follow me into this land. May I then marry my own daughter to Isaac?" "No," replied Abraham. "Thou art the accursed race, and my son is of the blessed race. And curses and blessings cannot be united. But beware thou that thou bring not my son again into the land from whence I came. For if thou broughtest him thither, it were as though thou tookest him to hell. God, who sets the heavens in motion, and he will set this matter right too. And he that took me from my father's house, and spake unto me, and swore unto me in Haran," with the covenant of the pieces. This is the my kingdom's built on loose dickskin business. "That he would give this land unto my seed, and he shall his excellent angel before thee. And thou shalt take a wife for my son from hence." And Eliezer then swore to his master concerning the matter. And Abraham made him take the oath of the sign of the covenant.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
Attended by 10 men, mounted on 10 camels, laden with jewels and trinkets, Eliezer betook himself to Haran, and under the convoy of 2 angels, the one appointed to keep guard over Eliezer and the other over Rebekah. The journey to Haran took but a few hours, and at the evening of the same day he reached there, because the earth hastened to meet him in a wonderful way. He made a halt at the well of water and prayed to God to permit him to distinguish the wife appointed for Isaac among the damsels that came to draw water, and by this token that she alone and not the others would give him a drink. Strictly speaking, this wish was unseemly, for suppose if a bondwoman had given him water to drink. But God granted his request, and the damsels said that they could not give him of their water because they had to take it home. Well, then appeared Rebekah coming to the well. Take it. I imagine her like just dancing up. It's like a ZZ Top video. It's like, she's got legs. She knows how to use them. Contrary to her wont, for she was the daughter of a king of Bethuel, her father being the king Haran. When Eliezer addressed his request for water to drink to this young innocent child, not only was she ready to do his bidding, but she rebuked the other maidens on account of their discourtesy to a stranger. Eliezer noticed, too, how the water rose up to her of its own accord from the bottom of the well, so that she needed not to exert herself to draw it. Having scrutinized her carefully, He felt certain that she was the wife chosen for Isaac, and he gave her a nose ring wherein she set a precious stone, a half shekel in weight, foreshadowing the half shekel which her descendants would once bring to the sanctuary year by year, and gave her also 2 bracelets on her hand of 10 shekel weight of gold, in token for the 2 tablets of stone and the 10 commandments upon them. When Rebekah, bearing these jewels, came to her mother and to her brother Laban, this one hastened to Eliezer in order to slay him and to take possessions of his goods. And Laban soon learned that he would not be able to do much harm to a giant like Eliezer. And he met him at the moment when Eliezer seized 2 camels and bore them across the stream. And besides the account of Eliezer's close resemblance to Abraham, Laban thought he saw Abraham before him and said, "Come in, thou blessed of the Lord. It is not becoming that thou shalt stand without. I have cleansed my house of idols." But when Eliezer arrived at the house of Bethuel, they tried to kill him with cunning. They set poisoned food before him. Luckily, he refused to eat before he had discharged himself of his errand. While he was telling his story, it was ordained by God that the dish intended for him should come to stand in front of Bethuel, who ate it and fucking died. Eliezer showed the document he had in which Abraham deeded all his possessions to Isaac, and he made it known that the kindred of Abraham, how deeply attached to them his master was, in spite of the long years of separation. Yet he let them know at the same time that Abraham was not dependent wholly upon them. He might seek a wife for his son among the daughters of Ishmael or Lot. But first the kindred of Abraham consented to let Rebekah go with Eliezer. But as Bethuel had died in the meantime, they had not want to get Rebekah in marriage without consulting her. Besides, they deemed it proper that she should remain at home at least during the week of mourning for her father. But Eliezer, seeing the angel who wait for him, would brook no delay, and he said, "Look, man, this man who came with me and prospered my way waits for me without." And as Rebekah professed herself all ready to go at once with Eliezer, her mother and her brother granted her wish and dismissed her with their blessing. But their blessing did not come from the bottom of their hearts. Indeed, as a rule, the blessing of the impious is a curse. Wherefore Rebekah remained barren for years. Eliezer's return to Canaan was wonderful, as his going to Haran had been. A 17 days journey he accomplished in 3 hours, and he left Haran at noon and arrived at Hebron at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the time of the Minhan prayer, which had been introduced by Isaac. He was in the posture of praying when Rebekah first laid eyes upon him. Wherefore she asked Eliezer what man this was. She saw he was not an ordinary individual. She noticed the unusual beauty of Isaac, and also that an angel accompanied him. Thus, her question was not dictated by mere curiosity. At this moment, she learnt through the Holy Spirit that she was destined to be the mother of the godless Esau. Terror seized her at the knowledge, and trembling, she fell from the camel and inflicted an injury upon herself. After Isaac heard the wonderful adventures of Eliezer, he took Rebekah to the tent of his mother, Sarah. And she showed herself worthy to be the successor. The cloud appeared again that had been visible over the tent during the life of Sarah and had vanished at her death. And the light shone again at the tent of Rebekah that Sarah had kindled at the coming of the Sabbath, and that had burnt miraculously throughout the week. The blessing returned with Rebekah that had hovered over the dough kneaded by Sarah. The gates of the tent were opened for the needy, wide and spacious as they had been during the lifetime of Sarah. For 3 years, Isaac had mourned his mother and could find no consolation in the academy of Shem and Eber, his abiding place during that period. But Rebekah comforted him after his mother's death, for she was the counterpart of Sarah in person and in spirit. And the reward for having executed to his full satisfaction the mission which he had charged him, Abraham set his bondsman free. Remember, Eliezer was just a servant of Abraham. The curse resting upon Eliezer as upon the descendants of Canaan was transformed into a blessing because he ministered unto Abraham loyalty. The greatest reward of all, God found him worthy of entering paradise alive, a distinction that fell to the lot of very few. I only know of like 2 others. Genesis 25, the death of Abraham. Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Asherites and Lecherites and Lamorites. The sons of Midian were Ephraim, Henok, Adiba, and Eldiah. These were the descendants of Keturah. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, which is important. But while he was still living, he gave the gifts to his sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the lands of the east. Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years. He was gathered to his people. The sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of where? Machpelah, near Mamre, in the fields of Ephron, son of Zohar and Hittite. The field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites, where Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. In Abraham's death, God blessed the son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai-Rau. So as Abraham was passing away, God was like, "Yo, Michael, go down and fetch him." Fetch him and bring him up here. And Michael was like, "For real?" And God was like, For real. Go get him." So we're skipping ahead, but we're still in the Legends of the Jews. Abraham views earth from heaven. The archangel Michael went down and took Abraham upon a chariot of the cherubim and lifted him up into the air of heaven and led him upon the cloud, and together with 60 angels. And Abraham ascended upon the chariot over the earth, and he saw all the things that were below in the earth, and both good and bad. Looking down upon the earth, he saw man committing adultery with a wedded woman, and turned to Michael, he said, "Send fire from heaven to consume that motherfucker." Straightway there came down fire and consumed them. For God had commanded Michael to do whatsoever Abraham should ask him to do. And he looked again, and he saw thieves digging through a house. And Abraham said, let wild beasts come out of the desert and tear these motherfuckers to pieces. And immediately wild beasts came out of the desert and devoured those motherfuckers. Again, he looked down, and he saw people preparing to commit murder. And he said, let the earth open and swallow them. And as he spoke, the earth swallowed them alive. And God spoke to Michael. He said, turn away Abram to his own house and let him not go around the whole earth, because he has no compassion on sinners. But I have compassion on sinners, and they may turn and live and repent of their sins and be saved. So Michael turned the chariot and brought Abram to the place of judgment of all souls. And here he saw two gates, one broad and the other narrow. And the narrow gate, that of the just, which leads to life. They that enter through it go into paradise. And the broad gate is that of the sinner, which leads to destruction and eternal punishment. Then Abram wept, saying, woe is me! What shall I do? For I am a man of a big body. And how shall I be able to enter by the narrow gate? And Michael answered to him and said, fear not, nor grieve, for thou enter by it unhindered. And they all who are like thee. Abraham perceived that the soul was adjudged to be in the midst, and asked Michael for the reason for it. And Michael answered, because the judge found its sin and its righteousness equal. He neither committed it to judgment nor be it saved. He found it equal. Abraham became an equal to God. Man, that's mind-blowing when you wrap your head around that. Abraham said to Michael, let us pray for this soul and see whether God will hear us. And when they rose up from their prayer, Michael informed Abraham that the soul was saved by the prayer, and it was taken by an angel and carried up to a paradise. Abram said unto Michael, let us yet call upon the Lord and supplicate his compassion and entreat his mercy for the souls of the sinner, whom I formerly in my anger cursed and destroyed, whom the earth devoured with the wild beast, tore into pieces, and the fire consumed through my words. Now I know that I have sinned before the Lord of our God. After the joint prayer of the archangel and Abraham, there came a voice from heaven saying, Abraham, Abraham, I have hearkened to thy voice and to the prayer, and I have forgiven thee thy sin. Those whom the kindness I destroyed, I have called up and brought them into life by exceeding kindness, because for a season I have requited them in judgment. And those whom I've destroyed living upon the earth, I will not requite in death. Then Michael brought Abraham back to his house, and they found Sarah dead. Not seeing that what had become of Abraham, she was consumed with grief and gave up on her soul. Although Michael had fulfilled Abraham's wish and had shown him all the earth and the judgment and the recompense, she still refused to surrender his soul to Michael. And to the archangel again ascended to heaven and said unto the Lord, thus speaks Abraham, I will not go with thee. I refrain from laying my hands upon him, because from the beginning he was thy friend, and he was done all things pleasing in thy sight. There is no man like him on earth, not even Job, the wondrous man. And when the day of the death of Abraham drew nigh, God commanded Michael to adorn death with great beauty and to send him thus unto Abraham. that he might see him with his eyes. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Abraham's activity did not cease with his death. And as he interceded with this world for the sinners, so will he intercede for them with the world to come. On the day of judgment, he will sit at the gates of hell, and he will not suffer those who keep the law of circumcision to enter therein. See, it's all about the dick meat. Really, the most interesting thing about this story, especially in the Ginsberg version, the Legend of the Jews version, is that God put Abraham on an equal status with him. And after he died, he refused to weigh his soul against his sin. And he was like, we're not weighing anything. Like, you're equal. Like, that's it. And I think it's very interesting. I think it's something that we actually need to circle back around and explore a little bit more. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we will fucking do that. Anyhow, I've been John. This has been the Abercast. Thank you for listening. Remember, this month's Fellowcraft episode on Patreon at Subscribestar is about, I don't know how to say it. It's about historical references to sea serpents in Northern Europe. I think it's pretty interesting. I think it is pretty interesting. Anyhow, peace out, bros. Thanks. Hit me up. Bye. I'll let Hilla do the rest of the work.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.